Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. I'm Mike Evans.
And I'm very hot.
Hello, very hot. It is summer. We're supposed to have some kind of continuity though, aren't we? So when people watch this in November, then they're thinking, which part of the world are we in? So
well, greetings everyone from the world's hottest part of Oxfordshire in England.
We're at our spiritual home as well, aren't we? We're back in the cabin. We're back in my cabin this week for Hi-Fi Riff, and it is hot.
There are two reasons. Firstly, it's about 30 degrees outside.
Yes.
And the other reason, which is even more relevant, is that Mike had the Sugden A21 SE on.
Yes.
Left it on.
Yes.
Before we came in the room here.
God, it's hot.
And then we put the air conditioning on. And that didn't work.
It's actually January, -2 outside, but we've had the Sugden on for an hour.
Exactly.
So, yes, quite. And look, speaking of amplifiers, what are we going to do on this week's Hi-Fi Riff?
So, we are going to review the RA280 by Hi-Fi Rose, which is a very interesting bit of kit, I would say.
Fascinating, in fact. And can I just say, we've had a little spate now, you and I, of reviewing some amplifiers around this price range, haven't we?
We have.
And we're just having a chat and a beer before we started. And you said something really interesting. You said, look, but it's like buying a car, isn't it? If you want to buy a car, then you have different criteria and different reasons. You know, you might buy a Porsche Boxster for 40 grand, or you might buy a 7-seater Kia. You know, who knows? So actually, these amplifiers are really similar, aren't they? So I'm just trying to think of some of the ones we've reviewed recently. The Sugden, which you just mentioned. The Cyrus i9 with the power supply, which we talked about.
The XR,
The XR.
A while back,
Yes. Exposure, 3510. Riga.
The Riga Ethos.
The Riga Ethos. And now we have another contender.
Yes.
For that throne, that... How much is it?
It's £3,000.
A contender for the throne.
Indeed.
From Hi-Fi Rose.
Yes.
Now, I don't think we've ever done a riff before on Rose, have we?
No.
Hi-Fi Rose, have we?
No.
So here we go. First one. I've got it here.
Yes.
I've got it here. It's quite interesting actually, because it's a good weight.
Yes.
But it's not the heaviest I've picked up. I mean, I can actually pick it up reasonably comfortably.
Yeah.
Which some of the other amps we've had a 2-man lift, haven't we?
Absolutely.
But here it is. Here it is. And what's the first thing that strikes you about it? And you're not allowed to say what you said earlier about Tandy.
No, I did. I said.
Laskis.
So I said that it looks like an amplifier you'd buy in Laskis in 1975. So
the only reason for you saying that is because it's got these gorgeous VU meters, which personally, look, I completely welcome.
Yes,
I think are great.
Yeah.
And tone controls.
Yes.
So, which I don't so much welcome, to be honest. But hey, horses for courses.
Well, you are an audiophile purist, Mike.
we were called snobs again yesterday in a comment. So, apologies, but I guess if the cap fits, as they say, if the cap fits. So there we are. But yes, this bad boy. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I would say don't be fooled by the appearance of it. So obviously it's got a...
So I think it looks gorgeous.
Yes.
So what are you saying? Don't be fooled by that.
Well, how can I put this politely?
I'm a dinosaur.
In the old days, when Mike and I were fully paid up members of the Hi-Fi Snobs community, anything that looked like that, we would instantly dismiss as being complete junk.
We probably would, to be fair. Yes.
Stop looking at the sockets.
I was just checking out the sockets, like you do.
We're talking about the fascia, Mike. So please pay attention at the back. So
that's exactly what I was doing.
God. Yes, that's exactly what you were doing. So so the styling, it's very retro. It's very deliberately retro, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think it's very nice, actually.
Yeah, I love it now. You're probably absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I hate to admit that you're totally right. I would have probably hated this in 82.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of, 15 or 20-year-old us would be turning our noses up at that and saying what a load of,
we would.
A nonsense. It's actually a very interesting, very technologically advanced amplifier.
It's got a bit of chrome on it too, look.
It has, yeah.
This reminds me of my dashboard on my Ford Capri. There's just these little bits of chrome here.
Right.
Quite like that.
Was that the Capri 1300?
I did have I had a 1.3L Capri.
Yeah.
You can't get any lower spec than that.
No.
Do you know what's really funny? Sorry, we digressed. Do you know what was really funny about my 1.3L Capri?
It was a 1.3 litre.
And because of that, the engine was absolutely tiny and the bonnet was enormous. And you could actually climb into the bonnet and walk around. Because there was no engine there at all.
Well, it looked like someone had stolen the proper engine
It did.
and put a Hill with engine in instead, didn't it? So
I did. Yes, absolutely. No, I was thinking of my 2-litre laser with the six-pot dash.
all right.
That's where I was going with that. So there we are.
There we go.
I've got to turn it around. Haven't we? Look at that. Look at those sockets.
I was still talking about the fascia bike.
Sorry, I couldn't wait.
So, I know you couldn't.
wait.
Anyway.
No.
So now that you've turned it round and shown everyone the socket, so there's something conspicuous by its absence.
There really is, isn't there?
Several things actually.
Yes, when you're quite right. Several things. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So number one, digital inputs.
Yes.
So not there, and number two, no streaming functionality.
No digital outputs. Nothing like that.
No Bluetooth.
This is just an amplifier.
Yeah.
It's
an old school amp, isn't it?
It's an old school amp. It really is just an old school amp.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's an interesting thing in a way, because so many amps these days are, jacks of all trades, aren't they? And often masters of none.
Yes.
But this is actually, despite the 70s throwback fascia, it's quite a purist amp, and it does have VU meters, which I shall come to in a minute, and it has tone controls, which I'll talk about as well.
Yeah.
But inside, it's got a very advanced implementation of Class D, and Hi-Fi Rose called it Class AD. I'm not quite sure if that's strictly
a thing,
but it's certainly a marketing thing anyway. And it basically uses a kind of new generation of gallium nitride field effect transistors. And
of course it does.
Yes. And you say, but David, normally they use silicon FETs, don't they?
But David, normally they use silicon FETs
in Class D, yeah. So Hi-Fi Rose say, and I think there's a lot of evidence for this, that that these new type of FETs are much faster. They switch much faster, and so there are some manufacturers, most of whom I've forgotten, but I can remember Peachtree Audio do use this new type of FET, and I would say that it certainly sounds quite distinctive, I would say.
It does.
Wouldn't you?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. It's
compared to normal Class D.
Yes, and we've struggled a little bit to find Class D amplifiers that we've actually liked. We found a French one which we did a riff on. God, ages and ages ago now, which we thought was really quite sweet.
Yep.
But actually, some of them have been not as nice as we'd hoped, and some of them have been expensive too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Class AB, isn't it? There are good ones and bad ones.
Yes,
and you can't get too kind of deterministic about it and say it's automatically rubbish if it's Class D and it's automatically wonderful if it's AB.
Sure,
that's certainly not true. But this, I think, is a very interesting and impressive sounding Class D.
Really cool.
I think it's one of the best I've heard.
Yes.
So that's just me. But,
yeah. No, it's brilliant. We listened to it with the Cambridge Streamer.
Yep.
The 100, CXM 100.
Yes.
And Dali Ruby cores.
Yes.
And I thought that system sounded amazing.
Yes. Salvador Dali.
The Salvador Dalis. The Salvadors. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think. So I've had the Dalis in my system only for a few days.
Yeah.
So I've listened to them with the Sugden.
Yeah.
And the Sugden actually works really nicely with them.
It does.
But you've got to really whack the Sugden up.
Yeah.
Okay, to sort of get good volume levels.
Yeah.
This has got quite a lot of juice, hasn't it? This has got quite a lot of power, to say the least.
Certainly
Are we allowed to talk about Paul Miller?
Yes.
Can we?
He reviewed this amp, and he said that, so Hi-Fi Rose quote this as having 250 watts per channel RMS into 8 ohms and 4 ohms. That's the quote they give. But Paul did an interesting technical test of it, and he found that it produced a lot more power than that, almost twice as much, I think.
Excellent.
So very, very understated power output figures, I think. And Mike discovered that the first time he pressed play on the streamer and nearly blew the bass bins out of the Salvadors.
Yes,
didn't you?
I turned it up to about 2 out of 10 on this.
I now can't hear anything.
No, exactly. Pardon.
So, got a headache.
Quite. So, no, it's got some proper grunt.
It has.
It really has. It's like the opposite of Ferraris in the 70s, isn't it? Where they would quote, it's got 300 horsepower, and they'd measure it, and it'd be like 220.
Yeah.
This is totally the opposite. They've just gone. They've gone all modest on this.
They've gone very modest.
They've gone all modest.
Yeah.
So, in fact, wasn't it more like 580 watts or something?
Into 4 ohms, I think.
Phenomenal.
So, for me, I've had this in my system for a couple of weeks now, driving my NS1000s, and it's like, it doesn't even notice the NS1000s. It's just massive power.
The reason why I've got the Darleys is because the Sogden couldn't drive the Linsaras.
Yes.
And I haven't actually plugged this into the Saras, but I can't imagine it'd have any problem at all.
Not at all.
No, which is quite something, isn't it? Yeah. So you made a really great point actually earlier, which was 10 years ago, as recent times as 10 years ago, to have that much power would have cost you a lot more money than what the price of the Rose is, because this is coming in around about £3,000, I think, at the moment, isn't it? And if you wanted half a kilowatt of power, then you'd be looking at proper money, wouldn't you, really?
Yeah, 10, 15 years ago, I think I seem to remember there was a Rotel Class D that did something like 250 watts per channel.
Sure.
And that was like a power amp, I think, but that was like very much an exception.
Yes.
But to have that in an integrated at this price, all that power is quite special.
Yes.
And we're seeing, in the same way that people are getting loads of power out of small 4-cylinder engines these days with turbos.
Great example.
Suddenly loads more power is forthcoming.
Yes.
So if you take Mike's MG Midget, for example, and I think Mike wishes someone would take it. So it's a car, by the way, viewers, if you're not, if you're worrying.
No, sure.
So that's got a Triumph 1500 engine, hasn't it?
It has.
Which was first seen on the Triumph 1500 in about 1971.
Yes.
And then it went into the Dolomite, I think.
Yeah.
And then
Spitfire it was in.
Spitfire 1500.
Yeah.
71 bHP off the top of my head.
Well, it probably did once.
Yes.
Talking about, over-speccing things.
Yeah.
It definitely hasn't got 71 anymore.
No, it's more like 17.
A few of those horses have run away somewhere.
Died, I think.
They've died. They weren't fed enough.
But, you can get like monster power out of a 1500.
Where are we going with this? I see. I see. It wasn't
Yeah.
just a slag at my car.
No. I was, I could do that as well. So,
you've got more?
Yes, but I don't think we have time.
We definitely don't have time.
Anyway, as I so rudely interrupted, Mike, sorry for, going on about your car. But, in the old days, you got very little power, very low power from MG Midget engines of 1500, 1498cc. Now you get like massive power with turbos and twin turbos and all the rest of it. So, it's kind of happening with amplifiers as well.
So it might look like an MG Midget from the face here.
Yes, it's roughly similar.
It's got a twin turbo under the bonnet.
Well, I was going to say, if you put a wood wrap on there, wood vinyl wrap, it would look like your dashboard, Mike.
It probably would, actually, and I have my Capri dashboard on the top.
Yeah.
How would you describe the sound of this?
Interesting, I think.
Yes.
So we were playing several things today together, but also I've been listening to this with virtually every record I own or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I find some Class D can be a bit mushy. It can be a bit sort of opaque and a kind of a bit misty, like someone's got fingerprints all over your glasses. And it tends to have plenty of power, but the bass can be quite soggy.
Sure.
Not saying every Class D amp, but it seems to be quite a generic thing, in the same way that sort of average Class AB can sound a bit sort of steely and thin and so on. But I thought this was very tight and clean and crisp and detailed, wasn't it?
Even with me streaming music, which
Yes.
you normally totally and utterly poo-poo.
Yes.
We played The Police's "Wrapped Around Your Finger," which is from their live album, which is live at River Plate.
Right.
How good's that?
Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and you could not accuse this of being bass light in any way, shape, or
No,
form.
you
could
nearly blew the speakers up, Mike. You nearly blew my eardrums up as well.
Yeah.
Come to think of it.
But I mean, the amount of and also controlled as well. You know, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. It's a really good recording, actually.
It is. Yeah.
Isn't it funny? Sorry, just to digress just a second.
Yeah.
In theory, right, live recordings should sound better than studio recordings, right? Because they are inherently should be super accurate, right? So you're just recording the instruments.
Yeah.
But how often artists get this wrong,
Yeah.
I find incredible.
Yeah.
And loads of live albums which I have just sound, well, rubbish, basically.
Yeah.
But there's one or two out there which are just absolutely stunning.
Really good, yeah.
Absolutely stunning. And that's one of them.
Yeah.
There's a couple of others. So if you listen to Hugh Masekela
Yeah.
as a live album, which is unbelievably well recorded,
Yeah.
as does not my favourite artist, but in terms of Nils Lofgren,
Yeah.
has got an amazing live, which you always hear at hi-fi shows.
Yeah.
But the reason why is because it's really beautifully recorded.
Yep.
But that was really cool. That was really, really cool.
Yeah. It's got a very sort of etched and clean and clear mid band. There's no kind of nasality to it. You know,
No,
it's very
100%.
sort of explicit, but it's not too bright and in your face. Certainly not that. But the bass is just
It was stonking, wasn't it? And there's a kick drum in it, which
Yeah.
Stuart Copeland plays,
Yeah.
which is like, oh, whoa, and it
Yeah.
takes your teeth out.
Yeah.
The other one, the reason I got my phone is because I can't remember the name of the artist, because it's one of my
Yeah.
daughter's bands she loves.
Okay.
So it's a band called Lab, L-A-B,
Yeah.
from the Lab 3 album.
Okay.
And I played a track called In the Air.
Right.
And I really like it. It's kind of mellow and cool and really nicely recorded, and
Yeah.
you know, and really funky. And I just thought this did it beautifully.
Yeah.
Now I'd listened to it earlier on the Sugden before you brought this round,
Yeah.
and I loved it on the Sugden. It was just like chilled, man. But this didn't really lose anything, and I really expected it to.
Yeah.
I really expected it to get tripped up by a track like that. But it just didn't. It just did it beautifully, and you know,
Yeah.
all the details there, the dynamic, everything's, and that's what was great.
Yeah, it times well as well.
Doesn't it? Yes.
So it's not. I mean, the
Yes.
Sugden is
Great
wonderful.
point.
It's wonderful at
Great
timing.
point.
The Riga ethos times really well
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
It's not quite up with those, but it's way better than most things.
Well,
I
it's
think.
way above those if you want half a kilowatt of power
Definitely yeah.
for $3,000.
Yes.
And VU meters.
Well, absolutely. Yes.
Well,
this
you
is-
made a point
yes.
about this.
So, point
This
of order.
This is a really good
So-
point. And can I just say, anybody from Rose listening to Hi-Fi Rose listening to this is a great point.
Yes. Thank you very much.
You're
Mike.
welcome. You're welcome.
So, not used to you saying nice things like that.
What can I say?
Anyway.
I had a beer.
I know. So, this is the secret, by the way, viewers. I drink while we're filming. Mike has it all beforehand.
All. Not sure I like the use of the word all.
So he downs it all like an old drunk outside a train
Thanks.
station.
I pay you a compliment, and what do I get back?
Yeah, sorry.
I'm a drunk
All right.
outside a train station.
And I was rude to your midget earlier. I'm sorry.
And my car.
Anyway, don't go there. And anyway, so here we go. So massively powerful amplifier. What do the geniuses at Hi-Fi Rose put on the front when they put meters? They're VU meters.
Yes.
So basically, they measure the line level coming into the amp.
Yes.
And but if you've got like a stonkingly massively powerful amp,
Hello.
yeah, why don't you make them power meters? You know.
Exactly.
So and
Exactly.
even have like a little switch for range. So it's like 1
Yes.
to 10 watts, and then 10 to a 500 watts,
and then 500 to a billion.
Yeah,
in this case.
exactly.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. It's a really good point.
At least then they would be useful instead of a gimmick.
Sure,
So,
sure. No, it's a great point, but I can't think of anything else really to sort of.
Yeah. Well, the tone controls are a bit weird as well.
Oh yes. Yeah, they are.
So they basically, I think they're working at 100 hertz in the bass and 10 gigahertz in treble, which is normal. But they work at plus minus 15 dB, which is like massive, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
So you can absolutely shred your eardrums.
Yes.
By turning it up.
30% more than most bass and trebles.
And also, if you've got a powerful amplifier playing loud and you whack 15 dB at 100 hertz,
yes.
Watch your speakers.
Exactly. Watch your drive units. We switched them off anyway, didn't we? For listening to them.
So
anyway, let's do a reformator. Let's do a reformator on it.
Yeah.
So I keep doing that.
Are you okay there?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Did you break a socket?
I did. Yes. It's much stronger than I am.
Exactly. So I try to be scrupulously fair, but I'm still not totally up for Class D, so I'm really surprised to say that I think this is has great value even for audiophiles, and especially if you've got hard to drive speakers, fantastic. I'm going to give it 9 because I'm really impressed by it.
See, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So Rose, Hi-Fi Rose, I think, are on a very upward tangent.
Yes.
And I haven't been all that convinced with some of their earlier products.
Yeah.
But this is by far and away the best thing I've heard from them.
Yeah.
Because of that, and just try and sort of keep that encouragement up and keep them going on that trajectory.
Yes.
I'm going to give it a 9 as well, which I think is really cool.
Excellent.
But I really like it. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And there we are. Look, and on that Class D bombshell, thank you so much for watching this episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. And we'll see you at the next one. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.